everyone. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, ready for motion?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the November 8th, 2021 agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Motion passes. Next, we'll have the report of the board members. Anyone?
Mr. President, I would just like to say that district band auditions were held on Saturday, and Raytown had quite the showing. Raytown Central Middle Mariah Collins, she earned 9th chair flute middle school all district band, and tenor sax 2nd chair for middle school all district jazz band. At Raytown High, Oscar Peraza got 2nd chair clarinet all district band, and 2nd clarinet all district orchestra. And then Joshua Ramon earned 1st chair trumpet honorable mention band. Donald Bunch earned 2nd chair clarinet honorable mention band, all from Raytown. And then Raytown South, Charles Wolf got 1st chair horn all district band and 1st chair horn all district orchestra. And Sophia Luce, L-U-C-E, last name, earned 7th chair horn all district band. So we had quite a great showing for district band.
Oh, that's good, that's good. Good job.
And they will all be allowed to audition for state band, since alternatives are also allowed to audition.
Just to add something, I am part of the technology committee, and Ms. Plank is also in that committee with Melissa Tevenkamp, so we were able to discuss how the district is continuously using authentic learning for our students, the professional development that our teachers are receiving, as well as some long-range goals, and then looking at our technology plan and seeing how we can continue to integrate that with our strategic plan. So those were just some updates. We'll have more information coming about how we're going to continue to utilize our technology and be relevant across, all of our relevant with all of our stakeholders as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. Next, we'll have our report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll start out legislative session. Nothing really to report other than the fact that they're gearing up. We did have an election, an off-term election last week, in some different races, but nothing that affected the Missouri General Assembly. The filing of bills will begin by December 1st, and we'll get a great number of bills will be filed prior to the legislative session, most of the bills. And as you know, the neighborhood of 1,500 bills are filed every year, and about 75 to 125 make it across the finish line. So don't expect a lot of movement this year just because we are in a midterm election year. We have several of our legislators running for that next office, some statewide, some nationwide. So it would probably be a session of, I would say, a nice little quarreling with one another over different issues and probably clouding the judgments of different bills. And that is a good thing for us, always when they're can't necessarily seem to agree on some things, some bad legislation doesn't seem to get passed. So that would be that. 8.2 and 8.3, any questions on the elementary or secondary principal reports? Be happy to answer those. Okay. Hearing none. 8.4, 8.5, any questions on monthly data review or in-school and out-of-school suspension reports? See the numbers for random student drug testing, and I'm going to give Dr. Shelton and Dr. Huff some time to talk about the membership count. 8.7.
K-12 and enrollment is up 53 students from this time last year. Pre-K-12 student enrollment is up 102 students from this time last year. The overall 6-year trend, though, is generally down, and you may remember that we contracted with a demographer. That demographer should be wrapping up his study, and in December, at the December board meeting, he will be presenting the demographic study and any recommendations he may have.
What do you, even though it's an increase and the trend is down, but that's still a pretty big increase from last year, what do you attribute that to?
COVID, last year was such a strange year. A number of families maybe didn't enroll their students a year ago to go to private school because those schools were in session, maybe homeschool their students. So I think the bump we're seeing this year is more a response to being back in person, and really is probably more representative of our enrollment. I don't think last year's number is indicative of our enrollment.
Do we know of those 100, were most of them former students of ours already, or are they actually new to the district?
Well, the 102, that encompasses our pre-K through 12. The 53 is K through 12. So obviously all the preschool students would be new to us. We have such a high transient rate, it's really difficult to tell, and I don't know that we really dug into, if we can really identify who those 53 or 53 students are that have come back, because kids do come and go so frequently from us.
You could probably attribute too that our homeless population is much higher this year than it was in years past, so that's probably where some of that count's coming from as well. The fall secondary and elementary parent-teacher conference reports, you can see those on there, and the numbers vary, but I did hear some positive comments, particularly from parents about allowing them to be virtual as well. And I would say that's a trend we can use moving forward to try and capture as many parents as we can. They just can't make it into a building or whatever the case may be, and offer that option and continue that dialogue between parents and teachers. So that was a positive thing. Any questions? We do have some principals here from the board on the parent-teacher conference reports. It was good to have parents back in the classroom as well. I heard that. It's good to get back in the fifth graders classroom and see what, it's been 13 straight years. Mark Lavoie has been in Northfleet Elementary, and this trend ends this year, so it was good to be back. Okay. Any questions on 8.10, 8.11, bond update, grant writer report? 8.12 is something we want to spend some time on, some name changes at Raytown South High School, and we'll turn that discussion over to Dr. Huff and Dr. Mixon.
And I'll let Dr. Mixon do the vast majority of the talking here, but this is basically centered in South High and their students having some discussion, administration and students had some discussions around some of the names of some of the different organizations that are at South High. When South High was first founded, a lot of the theme, I guess, of the school was tied to kind of a Civil War theme of the South. And so they played songs like Dixie, they had the Confederate flag, there's a lot of different things like that. And some of the names have persisted over the years, and the student body wanted to have a bit of a discussion about some of the names. Over the years, several things have been changed, from murals in the school to some of the traditions. And so this is just kind of a continuation of that process. Most recently, the choir's name was changed. Their name used to be Southern Comfort, and they've changed it since. Mainly for that time, though, it was because of the connection to whiskey more than the South. But Dr. Mixon can give you more details on this.
I think that's pretty much captures what they're working on. They've been working with their student body and just responding to some of the students' requests for these name changes. So they have a committee that they're going to discuss the changes that they want to make to the band's name of the Southern Regiment. Recently, the editors of the newspaper wanted to change the newspaper from Southern Exposure to the Red Pages. So we're just working through some of those name changes with students. They have committees, like I said, going, they'll meet and discuss and talk about possible options.
Okay.
I have a question. The name for the newspaper to Red Pages, that name has been changed and it is now Red Pages.
Yes.
And this was the conclusion of a committee, or the school voted on it, or?
You know, I'm not exactly sure about the newspaper. I believe that, like I said, the two newspapers, and I think they ran it through the administration. It was a relatively small change on the newspaper title, but we felt like the larger changes of changing the name of the band and that sort of thing, we wanted to make sure that you all were aware that we were moving this direction to make these necessary changes.
So the name has changed and no one has mentioned anything regarding the name being changed to Red Pages?
No. I mean, in the newspaper, I believe that they, and I would have to double check to make sure that they explained why it was changed.
Thank you.
Okay, 8.13, Board of Education meeting live streaming options. In several meetings I've been in, teacher advisory committee, sports staff advisory committee, heard from different staff members. Last year when we were not meeting physically, but by Zoom, more people were able to participate. Watching a meeting or typing in the comment section, etc. If they couldn't be here, they could be, in the past, if they couldn't be here, they couldn't get into the meeting, but last year they could because of Zoom. Zoom opened the door for that. There were some questions about could we, rather than record it like we do now and then we publish it later, is there a way we could live stream the meetings? Like some districts live stream their meetings, some districts have their local cable channel do it. We can't do that necessarily. We could with Comcast and with Raytown, but only half of our community would get it, because you remember 50% of our community lives in Kansas City and might not have access to Comcast. So we started looking at cost, what that would be, and we asked Melissa and her team of technology to kind of get a ballpark figure of what it might cost to live stream. Now, being said, there's also, the request was, can we just do it via Zoom? And that's, I can tell you, it's not an easy thing to do. We did that one meeting over at Raytown South, and it was quite the setup. That would have been, I think the 20th, I think it was the 20th, or was it, yeah, it was 2000, seems like we've been in COVID for 10 years. September 2020, we were over there and tried to broadcast that meeting and allow people to communicate via technology, and then also be in the crowd was very difficult at best. So, I mean, my recommendation, if it comes to that, would be, if we can go with the live stream, that's great, but as far as them wanting to come and speak to the board, they need to be here to necessarily do that. So, but Melissa, do we have that posted on what some of those costs were? Melissa, why don't you take me through the technical side of things and the cost?
So there's three different options in cost. And I know we've done some Zoom meetings, so if you go kind of back several months, where everybody was wearing headsets, because on Zoom you have audio feedback when you have multiple people on a computer. So in order to do it right, to be a long-standing option, we have to have a camera in the room that can view and zoom to folks who are speaking, and microphones that can pick up everybody who's speaking, and then be able to take that and go out to a live stream. Option number one allows interaction, if and when we ever want to allow interaction or some type of live stream, we would still have to have a live streaming platform, so that interaction would be dependent on the platform we chose. But it has a camera that mounts in the room and microphones that are sensors. Whoever is speaking, the microphones pick up that person, the camera automatically zooms. So you don't have to have 3 or 4 technicians running, and actually there's 2 cameras. You don't have to have 3 or 4 different technicians running a meeting. Because when you offset and equipment costs, you end up, spending later and staffing to support and to maintain the meeting. Option number 2 doesn't have the auto zoom function, so you're less expensive because we don't have as much equipment. And then option number 3 kind of goes back and uses a little bit more of our equipment. So we would be refreshing some of the equipment in this room and those options as well, which eventually would need to be done. There are options to go less expensive, but as you decrease the amount you spend in your equipment, you also decrease the quality of what we get. So if we're going to go to a live stream and the intent is for the audience at home to be able to hear everybody and see everybody, if you scale down back any further than this, you're definitely going to have a loss in video quality and a loss of audio quality. And I don't want to liken it exactly to an iPad in the back of the room, video streaming, but they do make appliances you can buy that are conference appliances, but in a room this size, you're going to lose a lot of quality if you try to go much less than that. I will also say right now, equipment's a lot more expensive than it was 8 months ago, and it probably will be in about a year, just because of supply chain issues. So the cost that you see right now does seem really high, but there is definitely an increased cost in this type of technology right now.
Is there a recommendation?
The recommendation is if the board would like to pursue a live streaming option, we would need to go out to bid. And that would be our next steps. And it would be nice to know what level of functionality we would want to have as options as we go out to this bid.
I would say it's just a matter of time before we would be the last district that's not doing live stream. And we probably need to start thinking about going that direction. And we'd ask that the board put this out to bid and bring it back to you and have maybe kind of an idea of, maybe we have some examples of what it would look like, whether you get the keys to the Cadillac or the keys to the Yugo.
Well, we need to choose an option in order to go out to bid.
We can do alternate bids. We can have them bid these things 3 different ways and have them bring them to us, and you can pick and choose.
So these are just estimates?
These are just
on these
estimates.
3?
Yeah, we want to give you an idea of what it might cost.
What I didn't want to do is go out to bid and you guys have sticker shock after the fact. So I wanted to be very forthcoming into right now this is what the market is telling
We
us.
might as well bid all 3 of them then.
We'll do that. Very good. Thank you.
Board? Y'all want to do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, our community's asking for this. All through.
And the last one, 8.14, the superintendent search update. I thought, Mr. Burton, President, do you want to kind of give the crowd where you're at and hear it from you?
Today we met with the GR Recruiting, our search firm for the new superintendent. They reported back to us what the information they received from the focus groups as well as the survey. We had over 900 people fill out a survey, which they stated as phenomenal, as that's not normal to get that many. So we're real appreciative for the input. The information, the summary of that information in the charts, I think we're gonna try to put that information out on our website for the information that we received on Wednesday next week, right? This week. Wednesday this week, yeah. Then Wednesday this week, the advertisement for the position will go out, and applications will be received until January 10th. And then at that time, that'd be the next time that we would meet with the search firm to talk about the candidates that have submitted the application. Is that about it?
That's about it, sir.
All right. Well, so be looking for that information on our website. We'll get with Danielle and the board, and we'll decide just how we present that, and we'll review it, and it'll be out there, I would say, in the next coming days.
That's all I have. I yield my time, Mr. President.
All right. Next we'll have, did you know? There you go.
All right, good evening. Did you know we have a fifth grader at Northfleet Elementary, Emery Jones. She was selected to the Missouri All-State Children's Chorus. She will perform at the Missouri Music Educators Association's conference on January 26th at Tantera. This is a really big conference that hosts students and student performers and educators involved in music in Missouri. And so it's a pretty big deal to have an all-district children's chorus performer over at Northwood Elementary School. Today is also National Parents as Teachers Day. Our Parents as Teachers program is important because it is kind of one of those services that we have for newer families or families of young children in our district to start introducing them to the Raytown way. So Parents as Teachers actually began in 1981 in Missouri as a pilot project for first-time parents of newborns. Since then, it's expanded to all 50 states and 6 other countries. So we want to take today to recognize the program and its benefits and thank all of our parent educators. The Raytown High School boys swim team. Lots of accolades coming from their recent conference competition. They won 9 out of the 12 events, and the relay team, the 200 freestyle relay team, set a conference meet record, originally set by the 1999 Raytown High School varsity boys swim team. This year, seniors finished 12-0 in an undefeated season. Seniors had 46-1 dual meets with 3 undefeated seasons, and Coach Azier celebrated his 13th undefeated season coaching the boys swim team. And we have a proud parent in the room. The boys will compete in the state competition on Thursday and Friday of this week. And then last on Did You Know, the district renewed its national privacy designation. So the COSIN TLE seal is a mark of distinction, and it's awarded to those school systems who are able to implement specific privacy requirements and demonstrate through policies and practices that it is implemented in a holistic program to protect students' personal information. The district is one of 17 districts in the nation, the only district in the state of Missouri, and one of 2 districts in the Kansas City metro area to have this seal. Next up, I wanted to take the time to recognize Natalie Johnson-Berry. She recently completed 18.5 hours of her new board member training. This new board member training places a strong emphasis on improving student achievement by providing guidance to board members on appropriate ways to evaluate and influence student performance in their districts. So congratulations, and you have a nice certificate. Nice certificate and pen to commemorate your training.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes. All right, and then last up, with me this evening, I have a couple of representatives from 2 community partners. I have Portia Seals, who's with Caring for Kids Network, and Pastor Andrew Adudu, who is with Graceway Church, and he also has visitors with him. What I want to do is I just want to invite them up to give you guys a little bit of information about programs, 2 organizations that have programs in our district to help fill the gap in feeding. Throughout the news over the past couple of months, there's been lots of news about distribution issues and deficits, And these are two organizations among many. I can also mention REAP and Hope Network in our community that saw that need and really wanted to do something active in our community. And so Pastor Andrew and Graceway Church has been helping food service directly on Fridays, fill in that after school meal gap. And then this past weekend, we had a food drive at Graceway's, the auxiliary location, to collect canned goods to support that initiative. And it was in conjunction with Caring for Kids and an organization called Thrive It. So I'm going to invite you guys both up. I think Pastor Andrew also has a couple of members of the church with him, just to give a little bit of information about that.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Portia Sills, Executive Director for Caring for Kids Network. The Caring for Kids Network has a vision to see all children have hope and reach their highest potential. And we currently serve 7 school districts in the metropolitan with 90 schools throughout the metropolitan with 385 community partners. We are proud. I am a proud Raytown resident, so happy to be able to serve our school district here, where we serve all the elementary schools and preschools. We, as Danielle said, heard about the gaps in food insecurity, and as an organization, we mobilized 4 locations throughout the metropolitan by which food could be collected for organizations such as Graceway, the Grandview Assistance Program, Avenue of Life in KCK, and City Union Mission for Kansas City, Missouri School District. And we are just grateful that you are acknowledging our hard work, and we hope to just continue to serve our community. Thank you.
I didn't know I could be this nervous speaking to just a small group of people. But thank you very much for having us here, and also recognizing Graceway. I thought I'm not the guy doing the job. I have a team of people, and I asked them if they could come. These are parents, and they have other team of people that would work together. Basically, what we've done is work with Dr. Tim Young and also Dr. Shelton to collaborate with the school principals or counselors or the secretaries of those schools to see how we could serve them. So we had a plan of 4,000 students every week until November. But as I begin to collaborate with the principals, they said, oh, we don't need so much, we need this much. So we were able to kind of network with our volunteers. We call them Dream Team. All through the week, they have a window time to go deliver to the schools, collaborate with the principals. We don't want any more burden on the principals. So we're like, we want to respond to you guys based on the time that you wanted and how or which classes you would like us to go lead those after school meals. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to serve Raytown and also recognizing us.
I just want to add, with both of these organizations, there's a number of things that we could recognize them for, and that we're very, very appreciative of them stepping in and filling the gap in this way. And Pastor Andrew, could you just give us the names of the individuals who are with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is Mrs. Elaine Chavez, and that is Lonzo. Lonzo is a retired teacher. and this is Mrs. Kia Ward.
Thank you, guys.
We need to see him.
Thank you. Thank you guys. I appreciate all the extra efforts we have from outside groups that come alongside and help us do what we need to do. I also wanted to mention about not specifically about the boys swim team, but I think this also shows that our investment in the Wellness Center and the Aquatic Center has been just a valuable asset, an amazing investment, because we've always done well in this area, but I'm not sure if we'd be doing this well if we hadn't made that investment in our local community. So I just wanted to point that out.
I'll say on that, they did.
And I think we don't need to hear Dr. Markley say anything at all.
Well, I will say that they not only broke the conference record, but they broke a school record at the same. They set a new school record set by I think Brad Burns and Don Blanner's son, wrote it in a story that had been in place since 1999. And the interesting thing about it, Brad Burns heard about it. He went to Harvard Law from Raytown, went to Harvard on a swimming scholarship and graduated from law school. He called the boys and congratulated them for doing so. Pretty
I thought you
neat.
said he was going to contest it.
Someone left early, yeah. So,
All right.
Very good.
We don't have anybody signed up for public comment, so we'll go past that one. Next, we'll have board committee reports, the Finance Committee.
Yes, Mr. President. I move to accept the August 9th, 2021 Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any comment,
Well,
question?
gonna let,
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, thank you. So, as you have the August meeting minutes in front of you, which you've motioned and second to approve. Also, you have the October minutes. In those minutes, you'll see that we reviewed the financial condition of the district. We also reviewed the prior and future operating expenses and revenues. We also identified 2 board members who met with the auditor. The auditor will be meeting with the Finance Committee in December at our December meeting, and then that final report will come to the board in January for your approval. We did spend a significant amount of time talking about our remaining bond proceeds, the sale of the remaining bond proceeds that we hope to do in January or February, long-range facility plan, potential bond issues. So we did spend a significant amount of time working on that. Also, one thing I want to highlight on our board agenda and consent agenda, not this month, but on certain months, you will see a large contract agenda item and a small contract agenda item. So in the small contract agenda item, you will see anything from $1 to I believe $14,999. In the large contract agenda item, you will see anything from $15,000 to $49,999. That was a recommendation from the Finance Committee, so that I guess highlight those larger contracts and those smaller contracts. One thing you will be receiving from me is a survey. We want to get a survey of the board's opinions on what the FY23 budget. We're beginning to think about the FY23 budget, and we would like to know what your priorities are. We did this last year. It'll be a very similar survey where you will rank certain items, 1 to 5, but also have the opportunity to talk about anything that maybe isn't on that survey to be ranked. Also, Joe Kinder will be coming. He's from Stiefel. He will be attending our December meeting in Finance Committee meeting, and he's going to talk to the Finance Committee about selling those $15 million that we have outstanding from the 2019 bond issue. And our next
I might
meeting,
say a word about that. I spoke to Joe and Brent Blevins at MSBA this weekend and talked to them about that, and they were very optimistic that when we sell those bonds and go to refinance some of our others, that we'll be able to get some good interest rates.
yeah, the interest rates are, obviously we're keeping an eye on the inflation and interest rates, but right now the interest rates are fairly stable. They're creaking up a little bit, but nothing that's getting our attention or our concern at this point in time. And our next Finance Committee meeting is December 13th at 4 o'clock right here in the boardroom. We invite everyone to attend. Thank you.
Any further comment, question? All right, motion's made and seconded. Natalie? Vote.
Yes. I'm sorry.
No,
Back
no,
in my
on the
seat. Sorry
computer.
about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Back one. There you go. All right. There we go.
All right, motion passes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I don't have a board report from the Raytown Educational Foundation, but I do need to remind you guys that the Raytown Education Foundation supports our students, they support our teachers through teachers' grants and scholarships to our students and what have you, and they oversee taking care of that. And one of their big fundraisers is their grocery grab, which is coming up in December. And right now, Martha has an opportunity for you all to purchase a ticket that enters you in the contest to win this grocery grab. They're only $5, and if you want 2 of them, they're only $10. And if you want 3, they're only $15. So you kind of get the idea. The more you buy, the more chances you get to win, to be the finalist, to go into one of the Constantino stores, and they give you, 6 minutes or something, different type, a short amount of time, to grab all the groceries that you can, and then they check them out and you take them home. And but this little ticket that you're buying is that you pay $5 for. When you go in and do your shopping, you can turn that ticket in and you get $5 off your grocery bill. So it's a win-win. It doesn't cost you anything to do it. If you go back and shop, and you're helping out the students, you're helping out the teachers through the grant, and you're making Martha real happy if everybody buys one before they leave today. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Is there a way to purchase like electronically, like Venmo or anything?
Is there a way to participate electronically?
Payment wise?
I'll sell them to you, you can Venmo me.
I will take you up on that tonight.
So the answer to that question sounds like yes.
Under Marie, not for old
I'll take it to the old-fashioned way, with actual money.
Actual.
And if she runs out of tickets, I've got some. Thank you.
You guys can just Venmo me. All right. Unfinished business. Restorative practice proposals.
Okay, we'll let Dr. Huff take the lead on that and discuss we had one response to the RFP. So Dr.
Notice
Huff?
we had the one response is attached to the board agenda item. The one response was from Center for Conflict Resolution. We do feel that they met the obligations of the RFP, and given the services they provided around the Kansas City metro area, we do believe that they would provide good services for us. The total price is the $1.15 million, and I am open to any questions or that you may need to have answered.
Or do you guys have any recommendations on when or if we should implement this?
Yeah, and we purposely did not put a recommendation here because it was a request of the board to put this RFP out. If you're asking for my recommendation is that the restorative practices is a good process for us to move towards. We do have to keep in mind that this would be a monumental shift for our district. And normally when our district engages in things that are of this magnitude, we try to include stakeholders in the process to make sure that everybody's on board with the direction that we're going. And quite honestly, right now is a very difficult time for staff. It's a struggle right now as a teacher. It's a struggle right now as an administrator in the buildings. They're really having to go just providing our basic educational platform as we stand right now. And a lot of that is just getting kids back into the swing of things with COVID. They were out of school for a year and a half, and so their academics are showing it, and their behavior is also showing it. We do teach students behavior on a daily basis, and when they're out of that process for a year and a half, it takes a little bit of time to get them back into the swing of things. So I would just ask the board to take that into consideration also. Like I said earlier, I do believe that CCR would be a good program for us. They bring a comprehensive program that includes a whole lot of PD, and they would handhold us all the way through the process. I should also mention that we had an opportunity to speak with a professor from MU the other day that is an expert in the field of restorative practices. He does feel that this is a good route to go. He does caution, though, that they have not seen any evidence of restorative practices alone making any kind of a dent in disproportionality. So he does see that discipline tends to drop, but it tends to drop across the board. and it doesn't really help disproportionality much. So we do believe that we need to bring a comprehensive plan to bear that is even beyond what typical restorative practices would have. We do believe that CCR brings a portion of that because they do have training on unconscious bias as well, which we do believe is an important addition to the typical restorative practices process. So if you're asking for a recommendation is probably to maybe to move forward, but to include stakeholders in how fast we should move forward.
In their proposal, is there a period of time before, as far as the PDs and all that?
Sure. The proposal they gave, they could spin up and get started with administrative training as early as January. So in their proposal, they'd go through a phased process where they would start off with training for administration and then move to the high schools and work down through the secondary to elementaries. And I'm sorry I forgot to mention one thing. One of the things that we need to keep in mind is that if we were to adopt something of this magnitude, we do need to follow some of our practices of removing some processes as well. Because sometimes it's overwhelming to have multiple processes doing a lot of the same things. And if you remember when we talked about elementary schools, we did see that there is what we have in place in elementary is doing a pretty decent job. So VIST and PBIS and the trauma-informed, trauma-smart training is making a good impact there. We don't see as much disproportionality. We do have fewer of the suspensions and that sort of thing, far fewer. When we talk with administration, building administrators about removing BIST, PBS, and Trauma Smart, they were really hesitant about doing that. And they said these are really good processes we have in place. We would like to augment our current processes rather than replacing them. So that's just good feedback that we got from the buildings as far as that goes.
Dr. Huff, thank you so much for going a step further and talking to others that have experience with restorative practices. And when it comes to something that would complement it, what types of programs are we talking about that would complement restorative practices and make them more effective and beneficial for us as a district?
So one of the things we talked with these folks from MU, they were not familiar with CCR. And so when they talked to us about what they're used to seeing, the programs that they're used to seeing don't go as much into the unconscious biases as CCR has committed to do. When we met with CCR, before we came to the board with them, we had asked them that very directly to see if that's part of their program. We believe that it's something that would be helpful, but we also believe that through our cultural competency committee, we would want to look at that even closer. We do believe that is at least a component of some of the reasons why we see some of our disproportionality.
And there, go ahead, Ms. Pete.
I'm sorry, cultural competency, we would look more into our cultural competency program.
So let me expand on that a little bit. When I had mentioned earlier we want our stakeholders to be a part of this, we already have a committee that is highly engaged in looking at processes and procedures and practices that we have within the district. And they're committed to working from the building level and also from the district level in providing training, as well as investigating some of our processes and practices and policies and seeing if that has much of an impact. So as for instance, we've got at the, and I'll just talk about South High because we do talk about them a lot when it comes to cultural competency. They're going through very serious book studies focused on a couple different texts and looking at how they can change as adults to be able to be more responsive to students and to really investigate what their own immediate feelings are around certain situations and how they might be able to do a better job. moving forward. And all of the buildings are committed to this. They all have a cultural competency committee or a chairperson, and they're all looking at PD related to how do we relate to each other, how do we relate to our students.
So the message, so I think when, we get our stakeholder feedback and we include people in the process, it's going to be critical that our teachers feel like that they're not taking on more and they understand the intent and purpose behind this, because they're overwhelmed. The burdens are great, and so I would want to make sure that they understand that message, that they have support and we're not adding more to their plates. That's very important.
Well, I would have.
Okay. Dr. Huff, so on cultural competency, are all of our teachers required to attend?
So we have a committee of about, 45? Yeah, about 45, and we have representatives from nearly all the buildings.
No, that's not the question, Dr. Huff. Are all the teachers required to attend?
And I'm getting there. When we have PD at the individual building level, it is, in some cases, they'll do some things that are voluntary, and then in some cases it is building-wide. All of the buildings do, though, have PD that is building-wide. So not all of it is, I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Well, you don't have to say anymore. I'm just challenged with your answer. So basically what I want to know, if our teachers are not required to attend these classes, meetings, trainings, then how do you become effective in changing and instructing and bringing about a change culture?
So one of the things that we're looking at this year is formalizing our process a little bit. So we are definitely in, we're adopting a process through cultural competency that is more and more involving of the staff. And this year, one of our goals is to formalize what's going on as far as professional development in all of the buildings. And so yes, one of the goals of curriculum and instruction is that all the buildings engage in professional development around cultural competency. We do have a plan that's been submitted by all the buildings, and we are in the process this year of formalizing that to where we can say for sure that yes, every staff member is going through training that's related to cultural competency.
Okay, so basically I'm assuming from your answer that all of our teachers are required to attend cultural competency based on your answer right now.
The same as all the rest of our PD.
But when it comes to BIS, all of our teachers go through it, right?
When it comes to what?
BIS.
Yes.
So that's a requirement, right?
It is. Now keep in mind that
wait a minute, before you answer me.
Okay.
That's a required. Why is it required?
Oh, it's a very important part of our program.
So isn't cultural competency important part of your program?
Absolutely.
Then it should too be required.
And you're preaching to the choir. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And that
because you're not going to be effective until you have all of the people involved in it.
Yes. No, we completely agree. And part of it is that stepping up of the training as we move forward. And part of it is that this last year and a half was very difficult. And we actually weren't able to continue with our plan over the last year and a half. And so we have had to take a step back. We are committed to continue to move forward.
I understand that COVID had an effect upon us, but
the problem is
what is, so if you are actually working a plan that is across the board, regardless of what takes place, if it's COVID or whatever, your plan is in place.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I am saying, that if we don't want to do restorative justice, obviously, because of the statements that are being made. We're partially there, but we're not there. So if you're going to use the programs that you already have, there must be consistency and everybody must be involved in it. In order to have equity with all of our students, everybody has to be on the same page. You can't have it if part of your people are not there.
And I completely agree with you. And I want you to hear a commitment from me. And Tony?
Well, I was going to see if Dr. Moore wanted to make some comments.
Well, go ahead. I'll wait till
because he's leading the committee.
Well, this year, one of the things we're formalizing is this equity audit that gives us input where we will be surveying of our staff, some of our high school students, even get information from our parents, and also seeing exactly where the needs are. That is the goal, to have a training, like 2 years ago where we did train all of our teachers. We had a person come in and do specific training with them. Our goal is to move forward with that. We did have buildings give us plans on how they do this. For example, some schools did do the CPL plan, some schools had me come out, time Dr. Huff is going out. But that is the goal when we formalize this equity audit, and our goal would hopefully be to bring some information back to this board of the information we collect and moving forward. But the goal is, I agree totally, we do need to have some required training, and it's been requested by principals already.
So what's the time frame like for this? Because while we're collecting information and data, what is our time frame like?
So the equity audit, there is already a group that we are in consultation with. The plan is potentially go through that audit next year. We are trying to be cognizant of where our teachers are at and where our staff is at and where our students are at right now. We want to move forward deliberately. We want to move forward as quickly as possible. One of the things we want to be very careful about, though, is that if, as we do new initiatives, there can be a lot of resistance if folks are overwhelmed. So we want to help them to not be overwhelmed, and we want to continue to move down this path. Part of that, when we talk about an equity audit, is we do see the importance of having an outside entity come in and help us to see where we're at and set goals for where we need to go. So that is part of the plan, and we are absolutely committed to moving forward with this.
And I'm sure our commitment to restorative practices as a board with that price tag demonstrates our commitment to, as Bobby aptly put it, to in regards to a culture change. And change is different. Change does take time. But you have a board that is willing to invest in our students to impact equitable standards in education and in discipline. We know, based on what you've told us, it's not going to stand alone. We know, based on what you've told us, that our cultural competency program is a slow-moving, and I want to say, is a slow-moving object right now, or slow-moving program, or slow-moving project. If we make this investment in culture change, and the program doesn't have the support it needs, and I understand the huge step we're taking with the equity audit, and I truly appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to it. But if we're implementing restorative practices, and we know based on experts that it doesn't stand alone, and we know based on the information we have from you that our cultural competency program is where it is now, are we going to invest in a culture change that is not going to change the culture?
So that's a great question, and it's important to go into this process with that thought in mind. I do believe that the plan that's brought forward by CCR has the components of success. So, and the components of success are extensive PD, wraparound PD. Everybody gets trained, and there is extensive ongoing training, not just one time. It is ongoing through really for a year for a building, and it also includes staffing. Now, one of the parts that's not in this plan is that we would need to commit to additional staffing as a district, probably another $1 million a year in additional staffing. And if we are able to do extensive training and the staffing to make this kind of program successful, teachers are going to stand a much better chance of adopting it and making it their own. Teachers mainly don't want to dive into something that feels foreign or feels forced. And so what we really need to be careful about is going through this process in such a way where teachers will know that, one, they're supported, and two, that we're committed with them throughout the entire process. The plan that CCR brings up here is a multi-year plan because it will be a multi-year adoption process. And You know, we, on the administrative side, are absolutely committed to moving this direction. This is what the board wants to do. As I mentioned, we just need to be careful about the practical limitations of going this route and being very careful that we go about it in a systems adoption manner that is going to be successful, because this is a big, big jump.
And I totally agree. I'm sorry.
I'm all about being careful about the way we proceed or with any program that we adopt. So I think we could probably be a little more nuanced. I don't think we brought up restorative practices just because of disproportionality to solve that, or even to decrease the number of referrals in a sense. What we want to do is change the culture and how people are being treated. And I think sometimes we don't really ask the right questions about what are we really trying to achieve. Because if a student needs to be disciplined, it's how we discipline them. We have, what, 26,000 referrals. So maybe we can decrease the number of referrals. Maybe we can change the discipline, the offenses that have occurred. However, the way we restore someone, whether it's staff or student, I don't necessarily see that as work, other than being educated on how to respond to any particular situation. And as far as audits and all those things, you know, we had, which we do have an advantage because we just heard it. We've had 900 respondents, and one of the things is that this was one of the issues that that we know. Like sometimes we know what the answer is. I guess we need confirmation. However, we also know that primary doesn't even need this in regards to disproportionality. What they seem to be doing seems to be more effective than secondary. And because of that, why would we implement it K through 12 when it's not needed that way? It could be more nuanced than that. So the cost of doing it, the idea about doing it, it's about what's best for the kids and what's going to get us to that place where we want to be sooner. Not just, well, we're doing this, so let's do this because nobody's really ready to. But in the meantime, we got students who need help. And some of these I was looking at different ones like Trauma Smart. Well, restorative practices, to me, is more about those discipline issues that maybe don't involve trauma, that involve just, those being disruptive or being those situations that lead up to something else.
So keep in mind that they're actually very closely intertwined.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we talk about restorative practices, we think about it as a reactionary process. But actually a large part of restorative practices is avoiding behaviors. And part of avoiding behaviors is understanding what the student is bringing to the table, which is really what Trauma Smart is all about.
I wasn't limiting either one of them. I was just saying that, yes, they do overlap, but I'm just saying that there's some things that we could probably use from both. That's all I'm saying.
So, and along those lines, you talk about the nuanced adoption. This board doesn't necessarily have to make an ironclad commitment to $1.15 million today. It can be more of a nuanced adoption process where you say, we as a board are committed to doing this, absolutely. And then maybe working through exactly what that looks like. And so maybe the board decides to do it K-12. Maybe the board decides to do it 6-12. Maybe the board decides to do it 9-12. I don't know. I don't know if the board has to make that decision today. Also, one of the things that we talked to the experts, they reiterated that the schools that have put restorative practices into place have not seen positive results for 4 years. It takes that long. It is a long process to get everybody trained, to get processes in place, and have it be second nature. So that was part of the kind of the warning of just be careful. This is a long process.
Is it because they haven't been doing it for 4 years? Because that's not the information we received.
Well, here's the other thing: is there are a lot of opinions out there about restorative practices.
Right.
And you can, you know, the next expert's the next one you talk to, isn't it?
Right.
So you definitely have to take it all together. This group has done it in Denver and in St. Louis, the MU through grants. They've done quite a bit of it, so they're not the only experts, but they certainly are some.
Dr. Huff, how long have we been doing Trauma Smart in our elementary, and what does that look like thus far?
We're in year, what, 3 now? We're in the 3rd phase?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a grant. We've had 2 schools. This is year 2.
This is year 2, yeah.
So we have 2 more schools this year.
And we're committed to actually move that all the way through all of our schools. We've so far only been able to do a few at a time because of the grant that's in place and the staffing that they have in place, but we think we can pick up the pace a little bit and we can get everybody trained at Trauma Smart. It's been very effective.
Thank you.
Mr. President. So, to me, one of the big things right now is just the timing of it. We're only 6 weeks away from the end of a semester, and to initiate a major thing like this in January. Because I have heard some of the things you're talking about, and Natalie's talking about the overwhelming nature of a major initiative like this on the staff. So, what are you actually talking about? As far, are you talking about some more study sessions about how we want to do it and when, and also get some more input from some of the staff members and things like that, or?
Yeah, we have discussed it quite a bit through CA, the Citizens Advisory Committee Council a couple years back. And that was a good group of administrators, teachers, parents. As we talk about, as these people haven't implemented this, they have found that it's best to involve stakeholders in the process of adoption and implementation so that their voices are heard loud and clear. So that could be a subgroup that's set up by the board of parents and teachers and administrators specifically, and students as well, specifically for how should we go about adopting this and implementing this. I don't know necessarily that it needs to be an if question as much as a how question, but
Or when, that's because I'd be more comfortable doing it at the beginning of a year and at the beginning of a budget year when we've budgeted for the amount and after we've brought a new superintendent on board. That's the wins for me.
Can we get a timetable as to what, I mean, you don't have to do it tonight, I'm not asking for it tonight, but I'm saying just get a timetable, shoot it out to the board as to what dates you're looking at for what, how you want to start the program, if the board is in agreement with doing it, how you want to start it.
yeah, they actually have a timetable that's right here in the RFP, and I can separate that out and let you know exactly. But in essence, the timetable starts whenever you want it to start, and it starts with training of administration. And actually, the Kansas City District, I think, did a really nice job. But their first training was with Central Office Administration, and which I think is actually the place to start. And that, in essence, that time clock starts as soon as the board decides that it starts. So it could start as early as January. It could start the first of next year. It could start a year from January. But from that start date, it's about 4 years to get through all the training and all the implementation.
So all I'm looking for, and you may not start it like Rick said, may not start it in the middle of the school year. You might just make the decision to start in August of next year. But at least let's see what it is, what it's going to look like. And I did see the information from CNR. I think that's it. Anyway, but I just want to see what the district here would recommend.
Well, we actually think that the timeline that CCR gave is a good solid timeline.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we had some of these other meetings, stakeholder meetings, would CCR be wanting to come and be part of those too?
So that's the other thing that this board can do is they can commit to CCR and also say that we may want to do a nuanced adoption of this. And it might not be the full 1.15. And what you can do is just pay them per session up front to get us trained up and to where, or go through those meetings of adoption, and then commit to what the overall plan would be. And this board could commit to, we will pay up to the $1.15 million, but we may do something less depending on what our stakeholder groups, what their input is.
I think that also will give the teachers, all of the staff, an opportunity to be exposed to it, to adapt to it, rather than, bringing it forward at one time.
It would be good to not be very abrupt.
Yeah.
That would be good.
And I'm going to agree with all of those things, that people don't feel like this is something thrust upon them, but they understand that this is not reactionary. It's something that is responsive, that it's a full-on commitment, just like we're talking about our cultural competency, and just like we have 5-year plans. This is not something that's going to turn around in a year, so we have to be really faithful with doing it. We want to have the right message of what this is for, so that we don't have a lot of rumor mills going out, so that people understand the value of this commitment and where this is going, and that, if things don't turn around in a year, this is a long process, but we have to get started. And I think the question is that we should all ask ourselves, are we happy with things the way that they are? Just reflect on that. And if the answer is that we're not happy with everything, we have to have a change.
And keep in mind that this is a major adoption. It'll go through the same phases of any major adoption. And that is that you have the euphoria of beginning an adoption and everything seems to go well, then reality hits and things tend to actually get worse for a while before it becomes second nature and then things pick up again. This will follow that same sort of continuum. Most everything that you do as a major adoption does.
When we did PBS, did we do it in phases? I think we did, didn't we?
We did, but we also came to a place where we did an overall adoption with everybody. And quite honestly, with PBS, it was adopted more readily and with more enthusiasm at the elementary level, and with a little bit more cynicism at the secondary level.
Yeah, well, I can understand that, yeah.
That's true of everything we do.
Yeah, those darn high school teachers.
Kids get a little wiser,
We had a lot of support from DESE. It was a DESE program and a lot of information and handling and how to handle from DESE. So.
Yeah. Yes.
When we move forward with this, again, I'm going to reiterate, not putting more on the plates of teachers moving forward with this, but not asking them to do 10 other things. So just being really faithful about that.
And this is also why we want to have a dedicated staff member to this, because restorative practice is heavy on process. And so for instance, when you've got a student in the class that's being disrespectful, is doing, making comments or whatever, we go through the process. These, sometimes they do these what they're called circles, where you may have that staff member come in and lead a circle within the class. Very arduous process of helping everybody understand the impact of actions on everybody present. And what are the feelings of the teacher? What are the feelings of even your parents when you choose to do things like this? And sometimes we bring those students out and go through the restorative process also with a staff member. This is why we have to be dedicated to those additional staff, because as you bring up, our folks' their plates are full. We can't ask the assistant principals to do this. Although they are part of the overall process, they don't have time to do the circles and the restorative conversations and all this. And we really do need additional staff members. So it's a great point.
Yeah, maybe we have to take some things away off the plates, take less and
agree.
take things off the
So
plates.
one of the books that we've done as a district before is Smoker's Focus. And those staff members who've been around would be able to tell you exactly what that says. And that is one of Smoker's big points, is that if you're going to add big things, you've got to take big things away.
Stuff away.
Yeah,
Got
that's
to.
right. So if we did this at the secondary level, that would very likely mean BIST and PBS come off, because those are the parallel programs.
And getting that feedback, going to be critical, you know, from our teachers and our other stakeholders.
So you let me know what I
So
need
what
to tell
we're hearing-
CCR.
So what we're hearing, or what I think we're hearing, we're not deciding on anything obviously tonight. I think we need to make our focus maybe a little sharper where we're at here. Like, I think 612 at the largest, 912 at the smallest. Try to narrow down the cost of what it would be for that, along with getting the feedback from staff, either through the Citizen Advisory Committee or introducing the high schools and the middle schools, hire CCR to come in and say this is what it would look like, and ask for their feedback. And also introduce it to parents. We'll have to find a vehicle for that. I mean, we could do the Citizens Advisory Committee, but we need a different vehicle, I think, at times to get more people.
And I would add that those districts where restorative practices is successful and beneficial, what has made that so? Do they have accompanying programs that work with it? Have they already done their equity audit? What helped spur that on to success? Or was it just restorative practices?
Yeah.
It would be nice to have some information in
And I'll
regards to
tell you
that.
that CCR is quite literally the only game in town in Kansas City. Every district that I'm aware of that's going through the process of restorative practices is using CCR. And so, yeah, as I talked to that, the experts I've talked to, the successful districts have a partner that has extensive PD. That is the biggest component, extensive PD that they go through with the school. So yeah, that is a huge part of it. Huge part of it is having a good partner, and we do believe that CCR would be a good partner.
You know, can I suggest a survey?
Oh heavens.
To who and to what end?
Teachers, the people that would have to implement this.
Yeah.
Just because, man, I just got so excited about how many people filled out this survey, but
Doesn't always happen.
I also, I just remember when I was working, and as an engineer when I first started, and they would always bring in these consultants. And the consultants, we had to tell the consultants what they needed to do. We had to teach them our job, so then they could tell us what we already knew. So if we asked them the questions, maybe they could tell us what we need to do anyway. Maybe it's not even any of this. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's just something if it's the percent, whatever their opinions are, it'd be good to know.
Part of it would be, I do think that the survey is a fantastic idea. I also think that it's important that people have a better understanding of what something is before they're asked what they think of it.
Not what they think of it, but just the issue at hand and how to deal with it.
Yes.
Not what they think of restorative practices, but.
So are you saying asking them, do we have an issue with too many kids being suspended, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that sort of thing. And what
are some suggestions?
From their experience and how in dealing with it and what they're seeing on the ground, what do they think?
Yeah.
No, or what do they think even of the programs we already have?
Okay.
Dr. Huff?
Yes.
What would the teachers have to do in the restorative justice program? What outside of what they do now, they refer students and they really don't have any more, maybe they do, you tell me. Do they have any more dealings with the student once they refer the student?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, what do they do? Do they meet with the student or what?
It really depends on the situation and the severity. At times they may lead their students in this what they call circle time, where they go through and have discussions about what's going on in the classroom. Teachers need to have a good understanding of what that means. If there is a major incident between a teacher and a student, then they would go through that restorative practices process, where they would meet with the student and a lot of that discussion is around, student, you did this in my class, this is how I felt about that. And the student also talking about, teacher, you have done this is how I feel about that. And so it brings a lot of agency to the students, which is actually a really important thing. It is fairly foreign, though, to what we do typically with students who misbehave. The big shift that comes with this sort of a process is that, right now, teacher is in charge, and when a student does something that's disrespectful or whatever, and I say it's disrespectful, then that's what it is, and the student is in trouble for it. Now, the administration will talk with the student. It's that trying to find out, why they did what they did. And sometimes it'll be because the teacher did something that, maybe was not appropriate, or maybe made the student angry, and the administrator then will go back and talk with the staff member. But you don't typically have that interchange between the student and the staff member that way. That is fairly different. And where we do it occasionally now, it would be regular through this process. And so it does take a culture shift in going that direction.
I think that's the biggest challenge, though.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you. The other thing is that at times, we would have to determine what this looks like for us. Because when a student has done something rather egregious in the classroom, restorative practices would have that student back in the classroom fairly quickly. We need to be cognizant of how we are as a district, and when it's appropriate to have that student back in the classroom fairly quickly and when it isn't, and what sorts of alternatives we would have for that student. We would just need to work through that and determine what that looks like for us.
Thank you.
Dr. Huff, just a quick question. You said the two programs we would maybe have to look at removing on the secondary level were PBIS, and what was the other one?
BIST. Now, BIST is pretty well adopted into middle school. It's adopted in general philosophy at the high school, but it would not be, the high school would not be too upset with losing BIST and PBS. The middle school a little bit more. The elementary schools would be devastated.
Well, you wouldn't take it out of those schools then, would you? Out of those?
My honest opinion is that what we have going on in elementary schools is pretty darn good.
Right.
Where we can do some tweaking there, I'm not sure that a replacement is necessarily the route to go. In secondary, this may be a really good program for us.
I haven't heard any teachers say they're against it. I just heard that they're worried about timing and what their responsibilities would be.
I agree, and actually just as a consideration here, Raytown Middle's been heading down this road heavy. They've had training, they're very excited about it, they're ready to roll. Not all of our buildings are in that place, but Raytown Middle is pretty far down the road.
Okay, to be clear. What I'm hearing here tonight is something that we wouldn't start this until the beginning of next school year. Okay? In the meantime, before we decide on what the framework of the project's going to be, we need to get feedback from staff members. And what I'm hearing is somewhere in the 9 to 12, even you could send it to 6 to 12, before you decide on where you want to implement. Get that feedback, and then I think you also probably need to get some feedback from some parents, and that may be another survey you have to do, but again, educate before surveying. So it sounds to me like there needs to be some Wednesdays dedicated maybe to, on the staff side of things, to help bring the staff up to speed on what restorative practice. We'll have to figure that out.
Well,
and that's something we can figure out.
Yeah.
I don't know that we said next school year.
It was just suggested.
It said, yeah, that was, I don't know that we said that. We asked what you thought, if we did, with there being nuance, what would be your suggested time frame? And if that's the next school year, I guess, but I think we still, if we're not talking about implementing anything with beyond the executive staff, then maybe that part can be done before the school year.
You mean not implementing the program in the building other than just training the district staff, district leadership?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this window, January to school ending, should be a period of time of instructing. You said something about forms, maybe that's when you would have your forms with your parents and your teachers coming in, instructing them what it is, getting their buy-in on it, and then we'll be ready to move forward as to what we're going to do with regard to whether we're going to do from 6 to 12 or from 9 to 12, and then start the process of implementation.
Well, I think the time frame, the time frame there would be, the item would be up to the board in May, June at the latest, obviously, but here's what the program's going to be. Here's the feedback we got. We'll be able to make a determination on that. Here's the program and its cost, and the timeline of the implementation from that day forward, once you decide what you're going to spend and what you're not going to spend.
Can we get that in writing?
Well, we need to work on it. I mean, you gave me the opportunity.
I just want a commitment.
I'm still saying that that's not what we, that's not, I think we could do the top level training and do the forums at the same time, where we can implement, we can do PD, we can get started in August in the building.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but if we don't get started with the administrators.
So we can train district leaders whether we use it or not, is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we will sit down and work on a time frame. We're not going to decide it here tonight, but we'll put something together and make this another topic on the December agenda. Okay? We'll get you the time frame prior to that, what we think is what we can do. And then we can discuss it and decide it needs to be changed. Okay?
And if I might say, I am not a fan of reinventing the wheel. There are people, districts that are using restorative practices. They have a companion to restorative practices that makes it work well. There are districts who have used restorative practices and we get varying opinions about it that are not using a partner program perhaps. I don't know. But since I don't like recreating a wheel, it would be nice to have some information on what is working best with districts that look like ours.
Well, I think we'll certainly ask the question of how did you communicate it to your parents? That's the big one. I think we've got to figure out how we're going to do that. And to get viable, when we send out a survey, and if we, you got 800 back on the superintendent side of things, but you may only get 250. We got to figure out how this is affecting a great number of people.
Absolutely.
I was thinking of the teachers in particular.
And I'm thinking of the teachers so that they want them to have agency in their classroom, because I know a lot of myths that are out there about it, and we don't want people thinking that it's just going to be chaos and bedlam in their classroom, so that they're properly educated. So,
Just one thing when we're talking about a timeline, and we're talking about overburdening the teachers and our administrators in the building, our central office staff administrators are equally burdened down right now with everything they have to do to keep things going. And I think when you're talking about wanting to start this the first of the year in January, we're talking about 5 weeks. And just keep that in mind, that they're burdened down too. Yeah. And it's going to overwhelm them too. And that's just something to think.
It's not necessarily January.
Yeah.
So can we clarify once more, just so everybody's on one page? Let's do one more clarification so we can all understand. Because I confused about that too.
Well, we didn't, there's nothing clarified about timelines, because we haven't decided on anything. We'd have to vote.
I'm just talking about the next steps as far as action, so that we can all be on one page, so we can all hear it once more.
We will come back to this group, this board, in December with a timeline draft and decide in December if that's the way we want to go, and include when we train district level leadership or assistant principals in the buildings, et cetera, as opposed, and then going on forward and how we're going to communicate to parents, how we're going to get feedback from parents and teachers, and a timeline of when we were going to discuss that and see if it is the proper way to take the district, if we have buy-in, because if we don't have buy-in, it's going to be a $2 million paperweight that does nothing that you want it to do. So we want to get that buy-in, and we're ready for there, we can decide and move forward. That's kind of where I'm going.
Thank you.
Is that crystal, that's not crystal clear.
Yeah,
but
that's pretty clear.
okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I think in the meantime, too, you have something that, not Natalie, Donna said, that we need to also reach out to districts that we know that are working. It's just to get like you did with the person that you spoke with, just to get their opinion and how it's working in their district. This is like giving birth to a baby, you know that? You got labor pains all over the place, okay?
No comment.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Well, the women in the audience can relate, I'm sure.
Board member P card charges update. Yeah, just an update. We had a charge on the P card, on this Peyton's P card. We weren't sure where it came from. UMB was investigating. And then Detective Johnston returned back one day off of maternity leave and was able to determine that it was charged inadvertently. It was a good charge, but it was put on the wrong
It
card.
was all about you, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So everything is good.
Okay. $500 stipend for regular Raytown School Board district employees.
Mr. President.
Make a motion.
I move the board approve a $500 stipend in December 2021 for all regular employees.
Second.
Motion
Boy,
is
that was kind of
motion
quick.
is seconded twice.
Now, I will say, before you do that, there's been some, Kansas City came out and they're taking Monday and Tuesday off for Thanksgiving. And yes, we would love to do that, but you can imagine the problem, the issue that's going to create for our families this soon. If it wasn't 2 weeks away, yes, we would certainly consider it, but we're 2 weeks out from those days. I think my recommendation would be look at next year's calendar and maybe take those 2 days. Is what I would do. Now, I know he said, oh, he's leaving, what's it about? I'm just thinking.
Well, I prefer this because it gives them something
cash
right
in
now,
people's
and
hands.
because our students
Exactly.
have already been out of school. They need to be in school.
Is that gonna be non-taxable? I mean, you're not gonna tax it, are you? You're gonna get
Well,
it
it has to be
straight
taxed.
500, right?
Well, we'll send you the tax bill if you
Well,
like
no, what
it.
I'm trying to say is, you don't have to take the taxes out, do you? I mean, can't they pay it at the end of the year or the beginning of next year, or whatever?
Well, I'd
Just
rather.
trying to help you guys out.
I understand. And
Temporarily.
we're not- Turn the camera off, John. No,
He didn't record that.
but, no, the taxes have to be taken out of that. But I know there's gonna be, the only reason I brought that up, because there's gonna be people asking about that. And, you know, my recommendation would be to, look at next year's calendar and maybe take those 2 days. Because we gotta get those days back somewhere. We can't, just because we take them, they take them off, they're gonna have to give them back. We can't just give them away. So they're gonna have to tack those days off.
Do you want to say
during the
what this
year.
is for? We didn't read the first, you didn't really say what this is for. Do they already know, does everybody already know about this?
About what? The 500?
Mhm.
No.
We didn't say what it's, we just read the motion, but we didn't say
I
what it's
know.
for.
Oh, what it's for is the extra duties that they've done during this COVID era, clean the rooms, et cetera. We've asked a lot of teachers to do some things that they wouldn't regularly do.
So we wanted to recognize that
Yes,
fact.
and we did.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I would like to just thank our staff for what
yes.
they've done.
Thank you.
It's not just teachers, too.
Right, it's not just
Every
teachers.
employee.
Support staff, every employee that's got paid.
Every employee and board member.
Board members.
I think that's a good idea, Mr. Moore.
Remember, we're being
I think the board
recorded.
members need to get something from all of this.
Yes, sir.
I got a mask.
Other than thank you, right?
This candy bar.
Yes,
And
the
the
duties
candy
that they're going to be doing from here forward, so that's.
Will they get this money before Christmas?
So, well, they've got to sign the contract. And so if they sign the contract by the deadline that we've established, they'll get it before Christmas. If they sign it after that deadline, they'll get it in January. So Dr. DeVilbiss is teed up and ready to push that contract out tomorrow.
Yes.
And they'll have a meeting to sign that contract. If they sign it by that deadline, they'll get it before the winter break. If not, they'll get it after.
Feeling they'll be signed.
All right, is it, and it's duties they're currently doing now?
It is duties that they will do. There are three, and later on in the agenda, in the consent agenda, there's a contract for you to approve, and that's that contract. There are 3 items that they must do. They have to do one of those 3 items. One is additional cleaning and sanitizing. 2 is to support the school district during a time of staff shortages. So some people are picking up additional work because of staff shortages. Yes, exactly. And then 3 is contract tracing. And so if you look at that contract that's in consent agenda, we'll have those 3 items listed there that they must complete.
I'm sure everybody will be very happy about this.
And to answer Ms. Salisbury's question, in general, it will be about a $375 amount that will be take-home pay.
Yeah, I just hate Uncle Sam.
What is the
putting it on the bonus.
total? What's the total amount?
$675,000 to do this.
Air on money.
When you approve the contracts for hiring, that there's a tab with everyone listed, if that's right. This is
You know, I saw the tab, and it
Yes.
added up to exactly 675,000.
I'm sorry, it's been estimated. We took about 1,350 employees times 500.
Well, no,
Well, the number at the end did say,
Oh, I'm sorry. So I didn't know. Right, and when I was estimating this, when we were considering this, it was about, at
I
that
think it
time.
was 675.
yeah, it was even.
Well, there you go.
I was amazed at that.
You're amazing. You
know,
didn't even know it.
Believe me, I did not know it.
Me neither.
That's no shame way too long, so
Yeah,
much they point with.
yeah. That's wrong.
Very good.
Here we go.
13 cents.
All right, next item is high school renovations, Raytown High School.
We missed one.
13.2. Increase.
Did I miss it? I'm on seat. I guess I was moving. Right? Sorry. Increase early retirement notification incentive.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move board increase incentives for early retirement or resignation notification as outlined in the attachment.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, why?
Right, Dr. Phillips.
We, this year, are suffering from some teachers that decided to retire very late in the year, June, for example. And by doing that, we had a very poor pool of candidates to replace them. So what several of my colleagues, I reached out and asked them what they do, and their incentive to get people to tell us they're going to retire was much higher. Ours was like $300. So theirs was all around, I fell on 1,500, 1,000, and 500 with different dates. So they're incentivized to tell us sooner so that we can post their position early in the year and get the best replacements possible.
That's comparatively with other districts.
Yes, yes.
No one else was down at the level that we were at?
No one was.
Must have been in place for quite a while. I can't
I was a little stingy there, so, yeah, I just couldn't see, but I understand your reasoning. Yeah.
I really want to get good teachers to replace our retiring teachers, and it's really hard when they tell us like everybody's gone.
Yeah, now that I understand, I'm in agreement, but I just thought that was a lot of money to give somebody to tell you something.
This is the first year I really felt like we needed to do it. I've known that we've been low for a while. So this is the first year I really said.
Incentive to notify, not incentive to retire.
Bless you.
We need 3 more people to vote.
Oh,
We the first, we the second?
I didn't know you was
Terry
voting
said.
yet. You didn't say that word.
Yeah. And Ashley.
I thought we were still discussing it.
No. Yeah, we were.
I was, wasn't I?
All right, the Raytown High 2022 renovation. Motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. President. I'm ready. I move Board of Education approve CB construction in the amount of $1,487,000 with a contingency of $148,700 for a total cost of $1,635,700 for the 2022 renovations at Raytown High School.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion?
Is this all out of the bond?
Yes, ma'am.
What we'll have left over when we get to spending this?
About $3 million.
15 million,
15 million?
somewhere in there.
Well, we haven't sold those.
Well,
So currently, we have about $1.5 million left over in bond proceeds. We're going to sell the $15 million in January or February, hopefully get about another $2 million in premium. So to fast forward about 2 years from now, as we sit here today, I hope we'll have about $3 million. I think after our next agenda item, it'll probably be more like $2 million. But as we sit here today, we got $1.5 million in bond proceeds available.
After we pay this?
Well, we're not paying this.
I mean, use this.
Yeah, once again, we're gonna sell 15 million this spring, so we're gonna get a big bump in bond proceeds in January and February.
And when
So
are we
we're
starting
gonna
this?
start till May. So
This is not starting until May?
Right. Yes,
Okay.
And CB Construction is the construction company we will be using because,
So we went in with that. CB is actually third on the list when you come into bids as far as low bid. When we had Centric, if you pull up the bid tab, you can see this. Centric came in low, followed by MSI Construction. When we went through them specifically and looked at work and what they've done in the past, neither one of those, Centric did not have any, did not give us, they gave us 3 pages of references, not one school listed. When MSI went through there, the only thing they had was in 2018, they had a HVAC renovation where they just basically pull units off of a roof of a building and put units back on. Those were the only 2 there. We went to see, and then when we went through their subcontractor list, we weren't familiar with their subcontractors that they were using. As you know, the leader is the general contractor, is only as good as the people they have working for them. CB Construction did a similar scope and sequence for us at South High, performed well, finished on time, and at or under budget. And so that's the recommendation that I made.
thank you.
Any other comments about the general scope of this work or anything?
It's almost similar to South High. What we're doing, I'll get it here somewhere. We're going back through and doing flooring, windows. We have about half the windows replaced at Raytown High 2 years ago, correct? We're going through and finishing those up. We're doing both fax rooms and renovation to the library and media center.
All right. I'm not going to say much about this, but all I'm going to say is if this work is going on and we see something completed and it doesn't look good, I don't want you guys to sign off on it. All right? All right. That's all I'm going to say on that.
We concur with you, sir.
Because our students deserve to have everything that looks good.
all right, ready to vote? Just I know we already voted, but you said the one firm hadn't worked with us. This work is something particular
Within
for
schools.
school?
Yeah, so when you look at general contractors and you look at the scope of work that they've done, working in schools is extremely different because we have a day that kids leave and we have a day that kids return. So we have a roughly 60-day period where we have to get done no matter what. Sometimes that means that the GCs will bring people in and work 24 hours a day to make sure they get completed, which is what CB didn't work 24 hours a day, but there are a lot of 18-hour days to get completed on things. Other contractors aren't used to that scope and sequence, aren't used to the pace. And this is the expedient work that has to be taken into consideration.
So they couldn't prove any way of knowing that they could do that sequence?
Not without, so my recommendation, no.
Yeah, I guess. Well, how do you get to that point?
So I did talk to a low bidder today, and so did Ms. Cochran. We talked to them about getting experience in maybe some smaller districts with some smaller scopes of work. I offered to meet with them to go back through and help them to see if there are other projects that are smaller in caliber that we can do that. It's a large caliber project, a large building, and it's imperative that we get kids in on time.
Yeah, I would hate to them to just say, hey, well, I'm not going to be on your project.
Sure.
All right. New business. The 2022 building upgrades bond.
There's no information.
Yeah.
Right, so Kevin, would you open up the fourth item down, 2022 building upgrades? Fourth item down. One up. There you go. Thank you. You enlarge that. We have enjoyed a very competitive construction market, and since we've been doing projects, bond projects over the last probably 10 years, we have benefited from contractors who need work and low rates. And we have not experienced what other districts around us have experienced, which was a large increase recently. And the projects that you just approved at Raytown High School is an anomaly as to what's going on in districts around us. Districts around us are seeing a 20, 30, 40% increase over estimated cost. We didn't see that at Raytown High. We did see that type of increase with the 2023 upgrades. And these upgrades include, as you can see on the screen, the upgrades at Fleet Ridge, Laurel Hills, Little Blue, Northwood, Southwood, Spring Valley, 3 Trails. If you look at this document that you have in front of you, the estimated cost that we went into the bidding process was about $2.46 million. What came from that bid, that bidding process, is that we had one bidder return the bid. Now that's extremely rare. Anytime that we go out to market, we typically have 3, 5, maybe 8 people, 8 companies, 8 general contractors provide us a bid back. That was not the case this time. We had one bidder, Excel, come in, and Excel's a wonderful contractor. We have no problem with moving forward with Excel and their subcontractors if that's what we decide to do. But we just want to bring this to your attention, that the bid that they gave us was $3.76 million. That's $1.2, $1.3 million over what we estimated. That's about a 52% increase, which is even above what neighboring districts are seeing with their bond projects, their projects that they're taking out to market. That got us to looking. Why would, we knew we might be higher than what we estimated. We didn't anticipate a 52% increase over what we estimated. That got us digging a little deeper. The cause of that large increase of 52% over estimated cost was were the bathrooms at Laurel Hills and the bathrooms at Fleet Ridge. Those are unique parts of this project, of these upgrades. Their plumbing, their electricity, There's flat work that has to be done. It's a confined area. It's a small area. It's work that's hard, that's difficult to be done in what, like Josh described, in a 60-day period of time, building these bathrooms inside of what's already a confined area. So, we feel like we have four options that we want to present to you. Option one, option A, is to take the bid as presented. Like just take the fact that we're going to do this project, we're going to pay 52% above the estimated cost, and move on. Option two, option B, is to pull out the restrooms out of Fleet Ridge and out of Laurel Hills. That if we do that and do all the other projects, that gets us into what we would expect to see out of the market. The apples to apples comparison. If we take the estimate then with those bathrooms removed and the bid price, we're looking at about a 35% dollar amount above what we estimated. That's what we might expect to see in today's market. So option A is to do what we put out the bid to do and just take that dollar amount that's above what we estimated by about 52%. Option B is to pull out those restrooms and to pay about 30% above what we anticipated. Once again, is what we're seeing out in the market. Option C is to go back out to market, to see if we can get more people, more contractors to bid. Because what we think and what we heard after feedback from talking to other general contractors is that some of the contractors were scared off because of the restrooms, because of the type of work, the amount of work that it would take, the timeline in which we had to get it done. So we thought about, well, what if we just take the restrooms out and go back out to market? There's two ways we can take the restrooms out. We can take them out and say, you know what, you don't have to have it done by the first day of school. You have until December to get that work done. You have until next June to get that work done. So give them more time to get that work done. Or to take it out completely and take it back out to market. The risk we run if we go back out to market is it's getting late in the game. There may be contractors who aren't available who don't want the work at this time. I mean, as I said, the market right now is very competitive, and a lot of contractors are already filling up their summers with the work. If we wait another month, I may come back to you in December and say, nobody bid. And then at that point, we got a decision to make if we do it maybe in 2023. So, reiterate, option A, take it as is, pay the 52% above the estimated cost. Option B, pull out the restrooms, do those at a later date, pay the 35% above estimated cost, or go back out to market and we roll the dice and see what the market brings back to the board.
What's the condition of the restroom?
So these are additional restrooms.
Condition.
The condition, and that's, right now our restrooms are in fine working shape. They've been recently remodeled, I'll say in prior bonds. These are additional restrooms that we're building within the within the buildings. These would be brand new restrooms.
So is there a great need for them then?
You know, we've talked about that. You know, these two elementaries have been around 50 years and have had the restrooms and have performed just fine with the restrooms that they have. Do they need more restroom space? Definitely. You know, this is a need. This is a need that they've brought to the table. We want to respect that request. But they've been operating a long time with the restroom space they have.
I like, based on what you said, I like option D.
Option D?
Because when you take the restroom out, which part, you're taking the restrooms back out to market, or the whole that rest of the package without the restroom?
In this case, we're taking the entire package out without the restrooms. So we're going to pull the restrooms out and take the entire package back to market. Now, Mr. Burton, you know, in option B, if we pull the restrooms out and take Excel's bid minus the restrooms, then we could go back out to market next year for those restrooms. Now, once again, we may not get a better price next year, but we can maybe structure it that we get a better price.
But why do we have to wait till next year?
Just being able to get into the buildings,
Timeframe.
you know.
Oh, I thought you said something about if they were taken out, couldn't they have a different?
But they may not be doing all these other projects. Their
Right.
primary project is the restroom.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well.
So, I mean, the summer of '23.
Right, and so we try to get them in there to do as much preliminary work as possible, maybe over spring break, maybe over winter break, spring break, and so they can do get a lot of the work done over the summer.
I wanted to see what Josh's recommendation is on this one.
You know, it's, I think one of the biggest components that Dr. Shelton brought up was the fact that we had one bidder. That's Excel. Excel does have all their cards on the table right now, that bidding process. You know, that's for everybody, see, that's public knowledge. That we
So
have
they'd be
that.
unhappy with us if we do this.
They understand. We've had conversation, and I both had a conversation with them that we do have one bid. It's not what we're used to. I think the concern would be, do we get another, if we already had just one person bid, we don't go forward with them. And they go get tied up with another district to fill their schedule, then do we come back and have no bids? I think that's the risk that we run.
So what's your recommendation then?
Recommendation would be to either A or B, depending on what you want to do with the restrooms.
So you're comfortable with paying 52% greater in cost?
There ain't gonna be,
This is always
it ain't gonna
fun.
get too.
No, but you're asking what that is. You're asking me to look into a crystal ball, and I can't do that.
No. I'm just asking, are you comfortable with paying 52% more?
You know, I would say it's right, it's what the market's demanding at this point. We've asked the market, and the market has spoken.
You need to shop like women. Before it comes sale.
I need a coupon, right?
Well, I would say B over A, since we don't really need the restrooms right now, but if we didn't do this right now, we don't spend this $1 million from the bonds we've already sold, is there a time, we have a time limit on when we gotta spend that money, right?
We're not gonna have any problem spending the $30 million that we needed to spend in the 3-year period. And we're not gonna have any problem.
I know I said D, but I meant B.
I think B is what you're.
I meant B, but based on what's been said now, I think A, because next year it's gonna be more than 52% of what, probably. I mean, we might get more bids, but it's gonna be next year.
Yeah.
So-
And as you know, Josh used a great phrase, you're asking us to look into a crystal
Yeah.
ball. We just wanted to present you with the options as we saw them. You know, if we were sitting here with.
We want you to present,
I'll say
look into a crystal
10
ball.
You know, 10% over the amount, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion, we would just recommend it, but given the exorbitant amount.
But we can't really see what the amount without the restrooms would be, because it's all lumped in there. So we got 3.7 as a total, how much would it be without
Josh,
the
I'm
restrooms?
sorry, Kevin, would you back out of this document? And would you go to the
Make it
document?
32%, 37.
Yeah, but
Which
it's
Would you go down to the second to the bottom, 2022 building upgrades, bid to budget? Would you enlarge that, please? Would you scroll? So as you look at the top, our estimated cost without the restrooms was 1.7, 1.8. And if we pull out those restrooms out of the bid, it's 2.4, 2.5.
So it's 1.3 million for those 2 restrooms?
Yes.
I say pull it out, I say do option B. That
It's absorbent.
So, do you wanna pay more later?
we need to consider not doing them at all for that price.
And that is another option, that we pull them out and we just say.
We don't need the restrooms to be done?
They said they're additional
They're
restrooms,
additional.
and they've been functioning fine without them. It was,
They have, these are additional restrooms, and they are being constructed at the building's request. And I believe the building feels like it would help them in their daily operations.
But
I'm
this was
saying,
their
so why would we
request,
bid them
right?
in the first place?
This was their request that we're trying to honor, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the only reason we're doing that?
Well, they believe it helps, it's going to help them in their daily
They
operations.
didn't know the cost,
Right.
Right.
Natalie, so therefore they they can say what they wish for, but they need to consider cost too. That's our part.
And you're very familiar with Excel, I take it?
We are, we're comfortable. They've done a couple different projects for us in 2019, 2020. They did our building upgrade package and performed well, finished on time and under budget.
Are you comfortable with the subcontractors? Do they use minority and women-owned businesses? And we know the percentages they normally would employ?
I know that off the top of my head. Don't we?
Allison Miller probably does, yeah. But we're comfortable with it, but we don't know their percentage.
I'm comfortable that they can come in and get the job done, yes.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm comfortable that they can come in and get the job done.
But when they subcontract, are they using minority and black-owned businesses when they subcontract? They do not.
We do not have that information.
Yeah, we did not ask that yet. So we can
So
ask
your
them.
familiarity with them is just based on their work, not them as a company?
Well, their track record, their proven track record to be able to deliver a quality product and on budget.
And being a general contractor, we did not ask them to provide that information up front. So they probably just reached out and took the low bid subcontractors to give us the best number possible on bid day. So.
Is there any way we can find out with CB Construction, with Excel, how many subcontractors they actually use when they're working for the Raytown School District that are minority or black-owned?
Sure, we can ask them that question.
Because that is, to me, a very important part of their references and work history. Thank you.
But we didn't ask them to provide that.
Right, so I'm
this time.
saying, right, I'm not saying in consideration. I'm saying as we look forward. Plus it's information, because you're a lot more familiar with them, of course, than we are as a board.
Sure.
It's information that is helpful to us as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
My concern about B, option B, and I know, yeah, construction costs generally go up. And whenever we're presented a project, my assumption is this is a project that we need. Not, oh, well, because of this or that. Now, and I know if it's something that we can't pay for, that's something totally different. Well, so I guess when I'm asking about pulling these restrooms out, I know, yeah, okay, we might get more bids later or whatever. It might not be as hot. I understand that, but if this is something we needed, then it's the discussion of, pull them out, because
I might say something about that.
Because if we need it, if we're gonna come build these restrooms one day, we're gonna pay more money. That's what
Well, it depends on how we define need here. we would all like to do this. When we did these before we did these bonds, we had all these schools in here, we had easels and we had meetings and tables, and a lot of these things, yes, they are needs to be better, but they're not a necessity need to get their job done. A lot of these things that we put forward were wish list items.
Where did this rank
they
on
really
their,
were.
on their list of, well, I want this, 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 and this, and it'd be nice to have bathrooms, but I want these first.
Yeah, but we're only
You know
making
that-
these assumptions that it's not a necessity based on the bid that we got one bid. We're not making it on. We didn't come here before the bid showed up and say, well, that's really not something that was needed. We didn't say that then. If these bids were, the need doesn't matter when it comes to the cost. The need is the need. And if we're gonna need it, if it's a need, or if it's, that's what I'm asking.
Well,
If it's truly a need, or if it's something that we want. And if it's something, there's something that we're gonna do in the future. If it's something we're gonna do in the future, I don't know that I'm okay with waiting a year to pay more money.
Our take on that was that based on the list of items that they had asked for at Laurel Hills and Fleet Ridge, there were a lot of things that were above that we've already taken care of, like the secure entry, office renovations. The restrooms were lower on that priority list. It was more of, like you said, it was more of a want maybe than a need. It would help the building function a little bit better, maybe make it a little bit easier for certain classrooms to go to the restroom every day, right? Provide a little bit, of an ease on that strain of the one restrooms that are there. but it was a little bit lower on that priority list.
I get
Do they
it. So,
only
but
have one
Is everybody familiar with the layout of both
No.
buildings?
There's
I,
only one.
yeah, I'm at Fleet Ridge,
So
so.
those buildings are basically an H. They go down, the restrooms are at the very end of the building. That's what staff were concerned about, that they take a lot of time going and taking kids down to use the restrooms to go back. This project would enable us to put the bathrooms, so they'd have bathrooms basically at both ends of the building. It is where it came from.
So John, what if we did this next year? I mean, I know this year and last year, because of COVID and shipping and all of that, has increased the cost. So we're not gonna have that issue next year as far as, because of COVID and all of that they have held back shipping. In other words, shipping couldn't get out like it would normally get out. So hopefully that is eliminated next year. So what's wrong with doing, putting it out for bid next year?
Nothing, and that's one of the things that we can do. I think, you know, there's a lot of things that we expected when we looked at futures. We had a lot of meetings going into this, that we expected things to go down. For instance, lumber and residential home building has gone back down. Steel prices, on the other hand, which your schools are constructed with mostly steel and brick and mortar due to fire codes, that has stayed absorbently high. It's, you know, over 100% higher right now.
And they're sucking it right now, but it's gonna go down. I just believe that it will, because there will be no cause to keep it up there, other than the greed, of course.
This is Salisbury. It most likely will stabilize, but we don't know that it's going to go down very quickly. A lot of that's driven by supply and demand.
Right.
We were all estimating, based on current markets, that we would be able to stall by this month, and prices have continued to go up. So we just don't know when that's going to happen. So we can't advise as far as if it's going to be next year or the year after. We'll see those prices.
I know, like John said, he doesn't have a crystal ball, but I'm just gonna assume, based upon for the fact that there won't be that great need for it. Because you know how we are. We went out and bought politician paper towels. We stocked up. We stocked up so much we didn't have to buy none this year. But I wouldn't be able to support this, because I swear this is against my nature. 52%. I couldn't.
That's why we brought up a lot of different options.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the bid without this would be 2.4 million with a contingency of 249,000?
Yes.
And
Yes.
2,625,000?
Yes,
That's what I'm saying.
The total dollar amount, if we go with option B, would be $2,739,000.
Mr. President. Mr. President. I move the Board of Education approve this building upgrade package in the amount of $2,625,839.28, which includes a 10% contingency of $249,000.
Second.
So can I clarify that? It's $2,490,000 with a contingency of $249,000.
For a
total dollar amount of $2,739,000.
All right. I was reading 2.6. I was just adding the 2. Is that not right? Yeah, whatever that number is.
Sure.
It said 2.6 on the page.
Rachel's got it.
Thank you.
All right.
So is that basically option B?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to say on November 8th, when we come back to bid on those restrooms, I'm going to be definitely against it. So, message been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, let's take a vote. I messed up. I need to change my vote.
Do you want me to tell me, or you want to redo it yourself?
I vote no. All right. Ballot language for Board of Education Directors.
President, I move that the board approve the ballot language to elect Board of Education directors for submission to the election authorities no later than 5 o'clock p.m. on the 10th Tuesday prior to the April 5th, 2022 election.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion, none? Let's vote.
Just info. Since we're not voting, Mr. President, I think I missed the place. Dr. Markley, did you talk about Northwood needing additional teachers or something like that? That was on the agenda.
About that in close.
Okay.
Some
Okay.
issues going on.
All righty. I just wanted to comment and I want to make sure I didn't miss it.
All right. This is the first read of policies.
All those policies are, to forego the policy committee because they are driven by statute changes in law.
Mhm.
One is.
So we're not voting on them though tonight?
No.
Just first read.
And also, the one about school board elections, they've lengthened or shortened the sign-up period.
Yeah, 17th of December to the.
You know they did that?
Well, this spring, they're gonna try to move the elections to November. Make it partisan.
Corrupt everything.
September 13th, October 11th, regular open session minutes, and October 25th, special meeting minutes. Consent, I'm on the consent agenda, I'm sorry. Need a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the November 8th, 2021 consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Do we have any donations?
Yes.
I know I saw them.
Yeah.
They're in there.
Yeah.
On the next, at the end.
Why did we divide it anyway?
Once you vote, I'll move it along.
Rachel, is there a reason why we broke it up, the consent agenda?
Oh, once you vote, okay.
Well,
All right, motion for consent agenda. We seconded already, yeah. We all vote, okay. I'm on this thing. Help
What
me out.
happens when we go after 8?
Help me out,
The
man.
donations were $40 for school supplies at Robinson Elementary from the Idaho Church of Christ, an individual parishioner. Another donation applies for $577 to Raytown South High School Theater from an anonymous donor, and a donation of $500 to the Family Support Service Department for Thanksgiving dinners to families from Healthy Blue Mo.
All right. All right. I want to thank for the donations. We really appreciate those from our supporters. Before we adjourn, just want to announce that the school board and administration, we're going to have some public forums I think the dates are, correct me if I'm-
16th and 29th.
16th and the 29th, and the times are
6
o'clock at RSEC.
RSEC.
7:30, I think. 7:30.
6 to 7, 6:30 to 7:30, isn't it? Or is it
What's
6 to
that,
7?
Rich?
I think it was 90 minutes.
6 to 7:30.
6 to 7:30.
So there are public forums that's gonna just allow for individual stakeholders in our community, students, parents, to come up and express some of the concerns. We are gonna have some guidelines that we're gonna talk about, that we're gonna send information out in regards to the 3 minutes, what each person can come and express their concerns or their suggestions, recommendations, or anything along those lines on the topics that we need to consider. And this is based on just some of the things that have been happening in our district and giving people a chance to express themselves and have a voice and feel like they're being heard, and for us to make sure that we understand and have a common touch that we need to have with our community. So be on the lookout for what those topics of discussion will be and criteria, and feel free to come out and to listen or just to express anything that you feel that needs to be said. With that, motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I move that the board adjourn the regular Board of Education meeting at 8:58, 8:56.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
And everybody, shoot everybody out of the room and come back.
Meeting adjourned. Yeah.